Hello, Battletech fans. Welcome back to another Battletech Heavy Metal Mech review, and today we take on the Assassin. Now, the Assassin was dubbed by HPS as not a very good mech, and I can understand why when you look at this layout. Its layout isn't too fantastic. It has one medium laser, one LRM-5, one SRM-2. Yeah, it sounds very underwhelming. So what they did for one of its quirks is they gave it an interceptor suite. So from my understanding, it's supposed to ignore either between 2 to 3 evasion pips, which is awesome. So if it avoids 3 pips of evasion, so if it's at 3, this thing is going to be extremely viable in the early game, to possibly even the mid game, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But in the early game, this thing is going to be king. And what I would do with it personally is I would remove that LRM-5, and maybe if I could put in some SRM-4s if I can. I don't know what this heat management is going to be like, but if not, another SRM-2. So 2 SRM-2s and a medium laser early on is gonna like really light mechs up pretty much. It's gonna like wreak havoc on light mechs. So I feel like this thing is gonna be extremely viable in the early game. And yeah, I just think the LRM-5 on it, it's very, I mean, you could keep it on there, but even if you see the enemy from a distance, and I mean, they're not shooting at you, so they're going to be full brace, you're not going to do too much damage. Even if it's a light mech, it's, you know, it's maybe 2 damage at best, and yeah, not really great. So I feel like the LRM-5 can just go away. So that's what I would do with the Assassin for the early game, and just get on the flanks of light mechs and just get in their backs, blow their backs up, and do all that thing, all that kind of stuff. That would be my my moves with this thing, because it's going to have great movement. I feel it's going to move fairly quickly, and you're going to be on the flanks of your enemies in no time. And even if the enemy is coming towards you, you can just get to their side and just ignore 3 pips. That's just nuts. That's just nuts. Especially for light mechs, that's your bread and butter. You know, your evasion is your bread and butter. You need to evade as much as possible. So when dealing with it, you know, in the early game as well, yeah, sensor lock could be a thing for sure. You know, just focus fire it and get it off the battlefield, and not worry about it. Or, you know, if it's, I mean its layout isn't exactly thrilling, but it's gonna hit you, so you can't ignore it for too long. But yeah, as an enemy AI, I wouldn't be too worried about it, but you controlling it is definitely going to make it much more viable than the AI would ever could, unfortunately. But yeah, so very viable early game. I would rate it out of 10 a very high 8. It's going to be good. It's going to be very good with that evasion pip ignore setup that it has. So I would definitely want that in my lance as soon as possible in the early game. If it doesn't come, I don't know, would HPS have it be in your starting lance when you first start your career mode? Maybe. I don't know if any of these mechs are going to be in your starting career mode, if it's at all possible between the Vulcan and the Flea and the Assassin. I don't know if any of those are going to be possible. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But in the mid game, I find this mech to be very interesting, and here's my reason. So we all know that it ignores evasion pips, right? So what about headhunting here? Yeah, so how about headhunting? So if we can put on a large laser with this thing, and maybe even have a really good large laser that has loss tech, so plus accuracy of whatever. I mean, +4 is the best, but if you can get it, great. But just think about it. You're ignoring all those evasion, and you got a call shot bonus by that point, potentially. You're going to be doing a lot of headhunting. And you're going to find yourself with more salvage on the battlefield. I truly find this mech to be very viable to the early to mid game. To like the middle, where you're starting to get to heavies, I find this mech to be pretty good. And you might want to just keep it in your mech bay just in case you're like, hey, you know what? Just going to take on this assassination mission. I might want it to do some headhunting. My other mechs can, tank for the most part. Something along those lines. I feel like that's where this mech is going to be pretty good in dealing with it. Towards the late game, I don't see this thing being that viable. I think it's going to take a steep drop. But that's okay. I mean, it's a 40-ton mech. It can't take a lot of damage, and I know HBS, they're trying to get these coil. They're trying to give the light mechs a little bit more viability in the late game. And for me, I'm going to be a very harsh critic on this. I'd rather play it out and see if they have any viability at all. I want to see what these coil weapons can do. I just need to see it firsthand before I make that kind of judgment. But I just feel like, in an overall scheme of things, it's going to be a big drop off for them, for that mech in particular. So yeah, it's from a mid game point, I would say it's probably a high 6.5 to 7, and then for the late game, it's probably going to be more or less a 3 to 4, depending on what you plan on doing. But an overall grade I'm going to give this is probably close to a 7. It's going to be pretty decent. It's a guess, but I feel like it's going to be a 7. So just ignoring 3 evasion pips is huge. That's going to be a big thing. And if you can put any other kind of TTS on it or anything else, this thing's going to be nuts. So that's going to be it for my review of the Assassin. So tell me in the comments below what you would do with the Assassin, and if you would use the Assassin in your lands, and why. Again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating, and I'll see you guys in the next mech review.